Hello, and welcome to this presentation of a musical Valentine, or Galentine as the case may be, looking at you, Betsy. I'm Ruth Reineking, a member of MOLLI's Membership and Marketing Committee. Now, do I need to remind all of you to turn off your cell phones? I didn't think so. I would especially like to welcome those of you who are not yet MOLLI members. This is the first of 3 cultural activities that will be presented as MOLLI special member events, free to MOLLI members. We've also planned a presentation on art in the Clark collection and the work of Stephanie Frostad, and an event explaining modern dance. Both of these events will be presented by outstanding faculty members. Now I'd like to introduce Professor Steven Hesla, who was one of MOLLI's first presenters about 12 years ago, I think, and we're pleased that he's here again. University of Montana Professor Steven Hesla has performed both nationally and internationally as soloist and with the Montana Piano Trio, with concerts and performances in Norway, Sweden, Germany, Portugal, Switzerland, and Austria, as well as recitals and workshops across the United States, as well as internationally. Hesla has been honored as Distinguished Professor of the Year by UM's College of Visual and Performing Arts. He was awarded the University of Montana's Nancy Boardman Diversity Award in 2013 for his leadership in establishing the UM Allies program, which trains faculty, staff, and students to be allies for the LGBTIQ community, colleagues, and peers. His resultant keynote address, Embracing Diversity, Achieving Consonance, was presented at the UM Diversity Advisory Council Student Achievement Award ceremony in March 2014 and appeared in UM's quarterly journal, The Montanan. Hesla's students have won regional and national honors in both solo piano and chamber music and have advanced to prestigious graduate programs and notable careers in music. Professor Hesla feels privileged to continue helping young musicians develop their talents and aspire to greatness. Thank you all for being here. Professor Hesla.
Thank you all. I'm going to try to so I can leave it where it will go. Does that pick up okay? Is that all right? So thank you all for being here. We're going 90 minutes from now. So if you have to leave at 4:45, just sneak right out. I'll be right behind you. It's Valentine's Day. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody. So, great. So that little painting up there my mom did when she was 94 years old. And she hadn't painted a painting for like 30 years. She did a lot of China painting and different things, but that was a real painting. And it was just because somebody in the independent living apartment said, Ruth, there's an artist from the University of South Dakota that's going to teach an art course down in one of the wings. And you don't have to live in that wing to go. Would you like to go? She, well, that sounds interesting. So she's starting to paint, and she's got a little picture out of the Smithsonian magazine of this bird on a totally gray background. I actually have the Smithsonian cutout. She showed it to me, and I said, Mom, that's not the gray background. Well, I thought it needed a little color. So that's hanging, and Gary's in my kitchen. So we're all having dinner in our kitchen. Gary, are you ready? And you can see the real painting. So that was Mom, and then she won the People's Choice Award of the state of South Dakota for the best amateur painter 80 years or older. So she was certainly my choice. And I hope I was hers. And this is my lovely assistant, Claire Wong. She's dressed for Valentine's Day, if she would be happy. So Claire will be keeping us honest with different PowerPoint things. She knows all about it and how to do it, and so that's great. So I'm so glad you're here. It's been many years since I've been able to do this, and one of the reasons is I don't have time to do all this setup and stuff because we're all busy teaching. But it's great, and I think it's working, so we're going to go for it. So one of the ways that you know that here we are, that you see, all of us, you guys too, you remember when you see a picture of yourself at whatever age, you just think you haven't aged a bit because you remember exactly how you looked. And the way you know that you've aged something is when you show people this picture you're going to see of me in a moment on the farm with a little baby pig the summer after my first year at the conservatory, when I made a decision never to be a pig farmer. And you can tell the difference between the pig and me, so that much I know you'll get. But what people usually say, is that you? and then you know that you don't look like that anymore. But of course, I think I do. So there I am. So the pig is the one in my hands. And the other fun thing that I thought you should know, and we got to play with the lighting just a little bit. Give me a second. Give me one of them. These guys. I think we're just going to darken it. Is that better? We can't see, but you don't care. So anyway, that church, if it's slightly blurry, it's from a camera photo, but that church is where I went to master classes when I was not so much older than in that picture, but the pig didn't go. Now they have like companion pigs and everything, but then they didn't. So that little church in a little village in Switzerland, the first time I was in Europe, it was such a beautiful setting. The waitress at the cafe said, we don't even notice unless somebody mentions how beautiful it is here, because they live there. But inside that church, a little Catholic church, is a relic of St. Valentine. Isn't that cool? So you know something that almost nobody knows. Now, can they prove? Like, should we do DNA? I think bones don't have DNA. But it's a shin bone, and we got to see it, and it's very secretly and sacredly kept away from danger and thievery or theft. So anyway, James Randall, our music historian, said, does the piggy have a name, or did it have a name, I should say, it's many years ago, many pigs ago, generations. I said I think the name was Bacon. If I recall. So here we go. So now we're going to talk about music. And how many of you got the handout or saw the handout? Put your hand out if you saw the handout. So if you have it, you have something that you can take notes on. If not, we're going to show it. And that's what Claire's going to help toggle back and forth between the colored, coded thing. So I don't want you to panic because this is not a music theory course. It would take a whole year to explain everything on page 1 of the thing, but I can make some sense of it, I hope, for you, so you just appreciate when you're listening, because if you can come to my recital Tuesday night, or you'll hear some of it again tomorrow afternoon and playing live on KUFM, that's if I'm still alive. Otherwise, I'm playing dead. So, I think possums do that, for example. But anyway, so, I can't help it, I just get humorous when I'm in front of people that occasionally chuckle. So, anyway, so we're going to go now to our next screen, and then we're going to start looking at music. So, today we're going to consider, so all of you know that music has these basic elements, right? Everything you ever listen to is going to have melody of some sort. It might even be almost anti-melody, very angular and abstract and popping pitches here and there and different timbres and flutes and percussions and all kinds of things, but we could call it melody. The two-word definition, I don't see any of you taking notes. You're not going to pass your midterm. Anyway, if you wanted to write down the 2 words for music, if you boiled music down to just 2 words that would somehow sum it up, anybody know what it would be? Melody is not one of them, so because that's too specific. Not even rhythm, but you're all on the right track, so nothing's wrong to say. Kind of, but a lot of pieces are not tonal. Sound, organized sound. It's all you need to know. Organized sound. Now, what about the guy or gal that tried to disorganize it in the most possible? Well, they organized it in a different way. So that's a 2-word definition for music. What's a 2-word definition for rhythm? And you could get it different in different languages, and you could even find 2 different words. But I looked this up one day because most dictionaries do way more than 2 words. But I found one definition with just 2 words for rhythm. And it's very interesting because the word rhythm comes from the same stem that the word river comes from. or stream. In German, Trauma is somehow rheumatic fever, rheumatoid arthritis has to do with fluids. So, guess what? The two words for rhythm is not organized, measured flow. Measured flow. Does that make sense? So if you just said measured something, claps or something like that, that isn't necessarily flowing. So music must flow. So when I'm telling our students all the time, and we're telling our students all the time that the music that they make must not only come from their heart, it has to flow. And so we give the horn players a way to make sure their air is flowing, and the violinists to make sure the bow is flowing, and the pianist to make sure the fingers and the keys are flowing. All kinds of different ways that we get measured flow to work. Now, we all know that sometimes you can identify a piece just from the rhythm. So, just think first, what song do you think this is? You could be right. Happy birthday to you. That's the most common guess. It could also be, anybody have the other alternative? All day can you feel. So you could be right, you could be wrong. So no matter what somebody says to you, if they say Star Spangled Banner, say, no, I'm sorry, it's Happy Birthday. It's called Stump the Student. They fail no matter what, and then you send them off to graduate school. Claire's trying to keep from frowning, but she's doing okay. She's going to graduate school next year, so that's great. So anyway, so that's the thought. So you got that. So what else? Let's see, what about this one? See, you get it, Jingle Bells. So you don't always have to have a melody to know the rhythm, or you could play the melody without a rhythm and you'd probably still know the song, right? And you'd hear the pitches and you'd say, that's the Star Spangled Banner, not very good rhythm, Steven. And then you'd be my mother tapping the clothespin on the piano to make sure I got my rhythm correct. So you have melody, you have harmony. Harmony is so important. So as we listen today, you're going to think about harmony. No harm in harmony. Ha ha ha. Somebody said, have you ever considered being a stand-up comic? You mean, should I stop being a musician? And they say, were you ever? And we go back and forth. And then I say, my mom used to say, Steven, sit down, sit down. And so I think sit down comic is about as far as she kept hoping, but I kept there standing up and doing it. So harmony is so heartfelt and beautiful, and chords go from one to the other. Life is not about always C major, C major, C major, C major. You've got to have a variety of beautiful harmonies that tug at our hearts or make us feel fulfilled or make us feel something glorious just happened. It's all encoded in music. And for some of us who are highly trained, we can look at a score and we can hear it. And that's an interesting thing, and that's why we teach our students something called oral perception for the ears. And so one student said, how am I supposed to hear that? And Roger McDonald at the time, Professor McDonald, said, it's quite simple. You just look at the score and your eyes will hear it. And you can have a feeling, because if you see black spots that are higher and lower and that kind of thing, you get a feeling for it. You don't have to hear the exact pitch to get a feeling that the score is telling you something already. So you'll see some scores in a few moments that'll give you hints. So, and we're going to talk about form, and the first form we're going to look at today is from the Baroque period. Do you know your years of the Baroque period from your music history study, roughly? Anybody want to guess or remember? Basically, it's a 150-year span. Bach's death, they say, sort of marks the practical end of the Baroque period as we think of it. Baroque is a time of architecture that was very ornate. Therefore, the name Baroque, which means misshapen and irregular, was actually a term that applied to architecture before it was applied to music, because the architecture was very ornate. And you'll see that all over Europe, and you'll see the front of a little apartment building that has, or a church that has scrolls of shapes that tell you you're looking at Baroque architecture. But the music itself, Bach died in 1750, and we're not actually going to listen to Bach today, but that's sort of the landmark year that we use to say the Baroque period sort of ended around 1750, and it started around 1600. but Bach didn't live all 150 of those years, so that was before his time. So that was an evolution. What was that about? The dead performance from tomorrow. That was my heart monitor. Flatlining. Oh, okay, well, anybody know CPR? So anyway, so where was I? Form. So you'll listen to this sonata you're going to listen to today is from one of two Scarlatti sonatas that I will play Tuesday night. And Scarlatti wrote, guess what, 555 that we know of sonatas. That's a lot of sonatas. And he lived a pretty long life. He lived, and this is where we're going. There were three composers, very famous. You know all of them if you know Scarlatti. And if you didn't, now you do. So now you know about three of them, because who doesn't know the other two that were born in 1685? 1685. Born 1685. Can you guess Johann Sebastian Bach? Domenico Scarlatti in Italy, Naples, Italy. Eisenach is German, former East Germany, tucked up near Dresden, Berlin, somewhere in that area. And that's Bach in 1685. And the third one emigrated to England and became the assistant musician director of music, Georg Friedrich. Hallelujah! Handel. So these guys were all born in 1685. It's like a, triumvirate of some sort. Isn't that interesting? Pardon me? It is. It's the Holy Trinity of Baroque, for sure. Because that's High Baroque, in the same way of maybe that there's High German. Very high developed, because it's the latter part of Baroque. And both Scarlatti and Handel outlived Johann Sebastian. Scarlatti lived till 1757, so the Baroque period was still going a little bit, 7 more years, and Handel lived till 1759. So 9 more years past Bach. And so Baroque didn't really end, but practically speaking, things were changing. And so while Bach was writing fugues, Scarlatti knew a lot about everything, and you'll hear it in his music that I'll play in a short while. Scarlatti was down in Italy, 1685, but by 1719, in November of 1719, he'd been through a lot that we'll skip over, he was hired by the King of Portugal to teach harpsichord to the Princess Maria Barbara de Braganza. De Braganza was the family name, I guess, for the kings that they probably didn't call him King Braganza. But she was the 9-year-old daughter at the time, in 1720, when they got all settled in. Scarlatti was still single. He got married a few years later, had a family of 5 kids, but there he is, the teacher of this princess. And for his whole life, she died 1 year after him in 1758. He was her personal trainer. She was his only student. I've dreamed of such a job. But how would you select that student? If they laughed at your jokes, perhaps. So anyway, so we're looking at form, and the form of Scarlatti sonatas is going to be very different from the Beethoven sonata that Adam and I are going to play for you very shortly. And that will be a very different grown-up sonata form. But the first was this incipient, changing, developing quickly in Italy. Do you know what the word sonata comes from? A lot of sonatas? What are you working on? A lot of sonatas. Well, when you say sonata, you are really using a word that came from, I know you all think I'm going to trip and fall, but I have a very highly trained foot here. So, sonata comes from the word sonata, or ultrasound, or sound. It just means a sound piece. That's all it means. And it came to be applied to a certain form of a sound piece, organized sound. So we're back to that. So a sonata coming from the word sonare, again, supersonic jets, sonic fishing finder, boom, the bats use sound waves to find their mosquitoes in your backyard. So all of that has to do with sound. That was to distinguish it from the vocal verb, which was cantare. Anybody sung in a cantata? Chant. The word chant comes from cantare. So cantata is the vocal version of sonata. They're both musical expressions in different ways, instrumental or vocal, you could say. And we, as instrumental musicians, are always trying to emulate the human voice. Thinking about it today, what about a string quartet? In human conditions we decided somewhere along the line the magic number was 4. So we have, how many of you are or have been in your lifetime sopranos? Sopra means above, so you can be above everybody else. How many of you are altos? And yeah, okay, especially as life goes on. How many of you, I was a high baritone at one time, I'm a lower bass now. How many of you are tenors? Okay, so, and then bass, how many? How many of you are, don't raise your hand, monotone? No, monotonous, oh, that's me, okay. So, I don't know if Claire would be my only student, she's not interacting with a smile. Okay, but she's one of many, and that's great. So now, just get down this list on your own, because I'll put it up on the Moodle thing, okay, and you can look at your own leisure about all these things. We'll come back to it as we need. She's here to do some things while I'm playing. We're going to maybe skip over that for now, but maybe later if there's time, because we've got so much music to get through, we might come back and sing All the Things You Are, because it's Valentine's Day. Who knows the song? I'll play a little bit and just, well, maybe you should sing it. We'll skip the upper thing, the time and again. Right? Who knows that part? Some of you? Most of you know this part. Okay, now everybody's going to sing. You softly if you want, or just clap the rhythm or something. Okay, no, there's no failure in this class because there's no test. I was actually looking in my computer last night for this file, and I said, what is this? It says Valentine Musical Exam. Well, what the screen cut off the part of examples. And I thought, oh, I didn't even know I was giving an exam. Okay, so here we go. Sing it at the end too. Isn't that the most beautiful song? And the harmonies just tear your heart. And they're basic, but they're so colorful because they're unexpected places that it takes you, just like love. And somehow, maybe. But it's from this musical in 1939. Nobody remembers the musical. Everybody remembers the song. Okay? Great song. So you've sung beautiful melody, and you've had beautiful rhythms and fantastic harmonies, and even a form. And there's the little introduction, the verse, and then there's the chorus. So maybe we'll practice for that for later. So thank you for doing that. You were wonderful. Okay. So here we are, Domenico Scarlatti. That's the Princess Maria di Berganza. Thank you so much. And that's the only known portrait. Period. History has not brought up another portrait of Scarlatti, so thanks to that painter. And that's the guy who became king, Ferdinand VI. And he didn't become king for a long time. They got married in 1728. They just assigned marriages. I was reading about it last night, that Portugal and Spain weren't getting along too well at the time. And so they said, well, maybe if she marries him and then her brother marries his half-sister, then maybe it'll all be one big happy family. So so that's how they did it, the arranged marriage. And so Scarlatti had a few years where he ran off and started raising his 5 kids. And then in 1733, he went to Madrid, not Portugal, but she was now the queen consort. Is that what happens after he becomes king? Or she was still the princess? You can inform me during your midterm exam. You can fill that out. So that's Scarlatti, and now we're going to go to the music, because I want you to know that this is not as daunting as you think. So this is how the piece starts. And a sonata in Scarlatti's time was only 2 little pages, but there's a whole lot of music packed into those 2 pages. Beethoven is like 12 pages per movement or something, very complex by comparison. And I made it look complex because of all those color-coded things. But if you just follow, for example, in the Baroque period, the bass line became like incredibly important because it guided musicians to play. When you hear the string orchestra this next week, I think, on a Sunday night, and you'll hear harpsichordists perhaps, and all they have is a bass line with a whole bunch of numbers squiggles over it. And out of that bass line, they can create an entire musical score, improvising it. So they're providing harmony and rhythm and melody and melodic shape. So, but the bass line, it's the blue line there. In New York City, the blue line, what town has the blue line and the red line? Is that Boston? I don't know. Chicago. And then I skip the measure that doesn't have a blue line, because that's just where I sort of tell you things, right? But the real music is the first set of blue lines, and then the second set of blue lines. Can you give us a later? And then... And that's the end of the blue line, and so if you were on your way to Midtown, you didn't get there. So Scarlatti writes a melody over that, but the bass line is important because it shouldn't just be all over the place. It's got to have some order. It's organized sound. So now you have this melody up on top of it. Now that's a beautiful opening. It's just kind of like the opening phrase. Do you know why, not so much in this piece, but because it's kind of a slow, a little bit like a pavane, or a song accompanied by a guitar, or in Spain, Portugal, or a lute in Italy perhaps. But Scarlatti was very absorbent of the Spanish thing, and a lot of his pieces have sort of things like on the guitar, for example. So you can enjoy styles of individual composers, even though they were all born in 1685. These 3 people, they wrote differently, uniquely, in a way. So you had this beautiful melody over an organized bass. Now, what if he had used the bass notes that were the foundation of the chords? It might have sounded like this. The first measure will be the same. I'll play the way he wrote the second measure. And in the third measure, you start to get a hint of harmony in the left hand. 2 notes instead of just 1. But he could have written only the foundational note of each chord. Measure 1. I don't know if that's obvious, but it's just too far down from this. Works better than So there's an order to things. So the great composers knew all of this, and they didn't sit down with their tape measure and say, oh, I can't go more than 3 inches for that bass note. They just felt and understood. And so they wrote with their natural training and their natural ear and their natural brilliance. The composers would give us these great pieces. Now what I want you to get out of this at the moment is look at the little pink things, little squiggles of highlight pink in the melody line in the first measure and in the second measure and in the third measure especially, and listen to what he writes in those pink notes. It's that one. one. It's kind of hard to see. So you have to get up to the melody there. So if those are the wrong notes, except they're perfect. They're the wrong notes because they don't belong to the chord. They're dissonant notes. They're tear your heart out notes. And so musically, you don't even know, but you are just yearning for that note to get to the right note. And so that just grabs you, and it makes the music deep. That's the class is over. That's all you need to know. So what if he hadn't written any of those wrong notes? It would just sound like this. Something like that. And that's just like what little kids would do because they finally figure out their chords and they're playing around with that. But then you get older and wiser and you say life is not just A majors, life's got some little bumps along the way. That's correct note. Now I'm on the third measure, it says number 3 there. And the wrong note is this, that one. Right note and the wrong, very sour. But you don't think that when you're listening to it. And now the reason you see up there, is this slightly blurry or is that my eyes? I wish we could. Is it slightly? Can you still make out ja and nein? Do you know your German? How many of you know that that means yes and no? So I played this recital, basically the same one I'm playing Tuesday night with the addition of Adam. And I'm keeping track of time, so I know we got an hour. So the Germans are so good with ja and nein, I just use their language. And I can speak enough German, I did all my introductions in German, and they think that's pretty fun to see me stumbling along. But they appreciated it, so they practiced. So now you're going to practice your German, and you're going to go ja, nein, ja, and then it skips to measure 2, and you go ja, nein, ja, nein meaning no. And after they did that for a moment, they were very good. It was perfect. And I said, you guys, your German is fabulous. I couldn't believe it. Let's see if you can do at least half that well. So I'll lead you, and well, I should have had Claire's has a beautiful voice. She's in the Holy Spirit choir with me, and she's here as well in the choirs, so she'll help us sing. Ja, nein, ja. Nein, ja, 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 nein, ja, nein, ja, ja, nein, no, ja, nein, nein. And I'm really exaggerating. But when you're hearing it in context, so now I'm going to play one more time, then I'm going to play the piece, and then we'll move on to Beethoven, okay? So that we get through our little journey together for today. So, what did I say we were going to do? Too much setup time here. Am I playing the piece now? So this, I might as well. This is the binary form, and you'll see it on your PowerPoint later when you get your Moodle shell and you get the PowerPoint for this course. And you'll say, what's binary form? 2 parts. The first part is going to move to, what? Yeah, that'd be great. I think we're just going to move to the PDF now. Yep, no. No, that's not. Oh, no, what? You don't get to watch this music. You just have to listen, which is not a bad thing. So what I want you to experience is just how that makes the music deeper. And this is my philosophy as life has gone on. We think we should avoid discord at all costs, but you know what? It's part of like what makes a pearl, right? Is a grain of sand. So discord and dissonance in life is part of what makes us feel so happy when you're finally friends again, or you've figured it out, or you resolved it. It's the same in music. Music is like art imitates life, and then they also say life imitates art, so who knows which. Okay, so I'm playing this now, and you'll hear a repetition of the first half, and then this takes 4 minutes, so set your watch. And then the second half happens twice as well. And that was the form that was evolving and developing in the Baroque. The forms were settling, the harmonies were settling, everything was settling down into what became everything thereafter, including Scott Joplin, including Elton John, including everybody. Okay, here's the piece. Second part, just for time purposes. Tuesday night I play it all. So here's where our job as teachers comes in, and so we guide. I don't think we train, we don't implant, we don't impart, but we guide our students into this place where the music resonates inside of them in the ways that they don't even know that they have this in them sometimes. Even though they play musically all their life, there's a difference, and we keep nudging them in that direction. And one day it's just like, 3 years ago, Adam Sears won third place nationally in the chamber music competition not just because he practiced 6 hours a day. He may not be today, but he did. And so you're always going deeper. Could you feel the resonance of those heartfelt things going on in the music? And that's what our job is. I tell students our job as performers is to convey musical meaning. Not to play the notes in a pretty way. Everybody enjoys it no matter what, because it's music. I think music is the greatest thing. We just played the pianissimo concert in Helena. I think the Republicans and the Democrats got along so well the next day. I tell you, it was great. 2 years ago, I know this happened for a fact. 2 years ago when we played the next day, we think we made a difference, but we do know that they restored $11 million to the university system the next day. So, we're moving on, thank you for that, and so we move on to Beethoven, and Adam's going to come out and join us now. This is Adam Collins. And you got used to Fern for quite a few years here. She was here 1 year less than I. I took her to I had the privilege of going to dinner up at Shadow's Keep with her the night before, she completed her interview, and then we offered her the job, and then she took the job, and then she said, well, Lance is retired, maybe I need to spend some time with Lance, and so we have Adam now, and Fern still, yay. So this is Adam Collins, who comes here from his DMA, Doctor of Musical Arts, from Florida State University in Tallahassee, and before that, Furman?
For the University of Delaware for my master's.
University.
And before that, Furman.
What is this? Am I doing something? Oh, I get it. It's one of those things. Okay. I forgot to turn it off. Did it affect the sound when I played? Can I just forget about it and just let it go? So Adam has his degrees, and we're thrilled to have him here. And one day he came to my door, and I had a different piece I was going to play in this part of the program on Tuesday, but he said, do you happen to know the Beethoven C major sonata? I said, well, Fern and I did it like 35 years ago or something, so no, I don't remember it, but I know I did it once. And so we've been working on this, and now the sonata form, you're going to hear it just absolutely going bonkers and growing up. So sonata, Beethoven, after it went through, Bach wrote sonatas too for flute and harpsichord, you could say, and Scarlatti wrote sonatas. And it was more common, though, that you saw suites in the Baroque time, partitas and suites, and they were dance pieces. And they were called stylized dances because you weren't really supposed to dance. You were supposed to just sit quietly and listen by this time, and you knew it was a pavane, or you knew it was a galliard, or you knew it was a minuet, and you could feel all of that. And so people started hearing and enjoying music as stylized dances. That's among one thing. But here's what I would have you write down if you were actually here to take notes. You would write down, but just write it in your heart, this wonderful saying that someone said to me once upon a time. Remember, Steven, said this person, music is dance for the ears. And dance is, you can finish it, music for the eyes. So they're just totally interrelated. So even if we're playing a Beethoven sonata, there is underlying dance and lift and joy and anti-gravity or embracing gravity kinds of feelings, always in rhythm, for example. And melody, in the case of this Beethoven sonata, if you can see or imagine that you can see that the little bit of a blur. I don't know how you change the focus on this thing here. Some of it maybe we'll learn between now and the next time I do one of these classes. So you see at the beginning, could you play that first? We'll give you an A first. He always gets an A. No matter what midterm he's taking, he always gets an A. And here it is. A plus. So he actually starts the piece totally alone. You'd think that Beethoven would have called this, therefore, a sonata for cello, and we'll add a little bit of piano. I can't tell you for sure, but there was a period of time, and Beethoven felt very strongly, and he was a fantastic pianist. No longer a harpsichordist, but by this time a pianist. And he wrote this piece, and it's called A Sonata for the Piano and the Cello. Ta-da! So, but it's just interesting because I think even in the program Tuesday night it'll probably say sonata for cello and piano. I'm not sure yet though. We'll take a vote. But play us that opening beautiful theme and notice that it's just a scale, just a plain old scale. And that's the complete melody. And Beethoven is so smart about how he wrote. He wrote melodies. He worked with them sometimes for days. Sometimes he'd sketch it and go back later. No, that won't work, because he knew what he wanted to do with it. The melody, and we'll just say the melody, never mind the harmony, that came later maybe, but he might have already known. But the melody had to be amenable or malleable enough to be used in many different ways. So you'll see that I color-code with some pink. And the first pink is da-da-da-da, and the second pink da-da-da is related to da-da-da. So there's a rhythmic relationship and a descending line kind of relationship, and that lends itself to all kinds of creativity, and that's all Beethoven needed to get himself started, was a melody that he knew would work. It's called motivic extraction or motivic construction. When I say extraction, that means you can take part of the motive, part of the melody. Can you do that? Da 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 da. Okay, stop there. And then the next time you play it, play what that is. And the third time he plays it, and this just in the first four measures. I started to tell you earlier, and I said that the Scarlatti Sonata did not lend itself terribly well to this idea of why in heaven's name our phrase is usually 4 measures long. Does it have to do with our attention span? You could think, but it's just the size of our lungs. Remember, we're emulating the human voice. How long is it before you need another breath? Historically, probably about 4 measures. It depends on many things, and singers will catch a breath if they need it. But we're breathing all the time, even if we're not playing with our voice. If we're not singing, we're still trying to lift the bow, and there's breathing in all music. So remember that as you're listening. And then, as he's playing his last 3 notes, or the pink notes up there, as I'm doing this. So we're harmonizing those notes. And then I do it next. So that's very intentional. It's not just, whoa, I wrote this melody, what can I do with it? He had to have a melody that would lend itself to motivic extraction or motivic development. And so that was Beethoven's genius. So Scarlatti, that beautiful song that you heard, he knew everything he was doing. He knew the bass line. He knew the dissonant notes that didn't fit with the chord. I haven't gotten to name it yet, but we're going to come back to it. Don't let me forget. It's called Seufzer, when you have a wrong note going to a right note. In German, it's called Seufzer. They were so happy I was there telling them about it because they felt such ownership in that word, because it's German, but also because Seufzer means sighing. So just think about that when you're listening. Even da, 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 could be da, da. The G could be the wrong note and the F could be the right note. And it's a sigh. So you probably felt that in Scarlatti, whereas the sighing could be crying. If you're not very honest, it could be lying. But it could be anything, but it's strong syllable, weak syllable, and it's in life. It's actually in the text. So we're going to do that for you, the first movement, but before we do, there's something else, and that is, where's my music? There's something else includes that whole first 3.5 minutes, it's really a long introductory section. It's very much a part of a sonata. A sonata can be anything because it just means a sound piece, right? But it is a form. So a sound has the sound piece has a repetition. Maybe we won't do the repeat today, just so we can keep moving. You'll hear it Tuesday night. But let's play together what's called the principal theme of the body of the first movement, where it says allegro on the last. Can you point with the allegro, which is later? And then the next line is the next word, vivace. Allegro vivace, fast and lively. That's what that means. So notice that melody that I made in blue there. So if you started with just do, ti, la, sol, and then he completes the scale in a way with do, re, mi, fa, sol. Do, re, mi is minor. Do, re, mi, fa, sol. Do, re, mi, or minor. So it's kind of interesting that the very next melody is also what we call diatonic, using the notes of the scale, and in this way, one after the other. So we're going to go with one big up. So I don't actually have my musical yet to that page. No, I was the one that told him to do it. So Claire is now a page turner. So we're not doing repeat to save time, but you're going to hear this glorious spiritual thing, because this is late Beethoven. Now, when I die, I'll be the late Steven Hesla. I don't mean it in that way, but the late Beethoven is that final period of his life. He was totally deaf. Totally. This was 1815, so I guess he had a smidge of sound, but it was 1819 when he could no longer speak because he didn't hear anything, so he used conversation books only after 1819. So this is moving in that direction. He was going deaf over a 20-year period at least. Anyway, Beethoven, in the third phase of his writing, is so sublime and so spiritual and so deep. And he would explain to people, when you hear me Tuesday night do a repeat in Scarlatti, you'll hear me make a little variation of a rhythm or a bit variation of some notes. That was what you did. You were supposed to show your improvisational skills by varying things. Beethoven said, no, I wrote the right notes. Don't mess with it. These notes are he called it Ewigkeit. I wrote this piece for Ewigkeit, for eternity. He wrote music for the future. He wrote music for the ages. So that's what you're going to hear now. I think I'm going to shut this off so it doesn't. This is. Okay, so keeping an eye on the time, I'd like to have you tell us comments afterwards, but maybe write them down and share them with us afterwards so that we can get through this. Here we go.
Let's see, I'll borrow this for a minute. Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here and share this music with you all. I just wanted to speak briefly to announce that I am teaching a course through MOLLI this spring on the all of the string quartets by Beethoven. So it's one of my favorite bodies of repertoire in all of classical music, and I cannot wait to share it with whoever I have the pleasure to share it with in that class. So I hope that you'll consider. I think I don't believe it'll be here. I think it's across campus, but I hope that you'll consider registering for it. I'm really looking forward to it.
I bet you'll all be there. So this is followed by another sublime, kind of slow adagio. Adagio just means slow, and then it goes into the final movement, which is just another amazing movement. This is such brilliant writing, but it doesn't take anything away from the beauty of what Scarlatti wrote. You see what I mean? It's just a different time. But this is an evolved form. And I started to tell you before, this is a great class for trying to remember to finish your sentences. But when I asked how many of you sopranos and altos and tenors and basses, think of the string quartet. If it's 4 voices, right? And then, of course, the double bass adds this contrabass and all of that. We extend our ranges. But basically, we're emulating the human voice. And so 4-part writing, Bach spent years practicing this 4-part writing. There's 371 chorales by Bach, and those are just the great story. I'm trying to figure out how to get this somewhere near my mouth, which my mother would say, why don't you try going the other direction? No, she always pretended she wasn't thrilled, but you know how mothers are. They always have our best interests at heart. So we'll welcome Adam. We're going to be on the radio tomorrow. We're doing this with the repeat tomorrow on 3 o'clock KUFM live performance. And come to his class. It'll be terrific. And he gets a feel for how wonderful you guys are. So it makes it easy for us. So thanks for being great audiences. And thank you, Adam. Now, every time you perform is a new experience. So if you know anything about Franz Schubert, in his day, he was famous for, he never had a piano, ever, as an adult, in any apartment that he lived in. So in order for him to play his music for people, he needed a place to go, and so a lot of rich people that loved and adored his music and him as well would say, well, let's just have an evening of music in our home. So these came to be called Schubertiaden, Schubert nights, Schubert evenings. And the reason I'm telling you about it is because I think they had like 1 candle to light up the score. And that's what I was feeling while I'm playing. Where did the music go? I almost asked Claire, would you mind going back and turning up the lights? So I think we just had a Schubert moment. So anyway, it was great, but it's a different feeling. And you know, that's what they had, right? They had just candles, right? That was it. Probably a lot of them, some kind of chandeliers. So we're moving on to, I'm going to share with you something about the piece, then I'm going to share part of what happened a few weeks ago, so I won't actually be playing the G minor ballade for you now, but I played it, some of you know, several weeks ago with Sophie Rebecca from England, and she is a remarkable person. We got to visit quite a bit. She is transgendering, and she could not find anybody who would teach her the female roles while she was still a race car driver, if you want to put it that way. And she was not exactly like the Indianapolis race car driver. She explained to me when she was that he was just doing a job because he got paid a lot of money to drive cars, and you know, a lot of times musicians have a lot of coordination, good reflexes, and they can turn the corners without flipping the car or whatever. And so she said she was able to save a lot of money and buy 2 apartment houses or something, and so she'll be okay with her life financially. But she could not find a single dance studio in England that would train her in the roles she felt she was drawn to. And so she was just refused. And they would say, we'd love to, but the Royal Academy of Dance requires that whatever your genitalia are the roles that you play. And that can be very heart-crushing for a person who has a different inside. And so she finally found someone who said, I don't care what the rules are. So now they have changed the rules. So that's where Zoytzer comes from, right? Life experience. So she had a sighing experience, but she is just thrilled that she got to dance the G minor ballade with live music, and this was Shar Campbell Carey's idea. She said, well, is there somebody in Missoula that plays this? Is Barbie here somewhere? They asked, yeah, there's Barbie. So they called Barbie because Barbie's our go-to person for everything. Well, Barbie plays every piece in the world practically except the 4 ballades of Chopin. And I play almost nothing, but I play all 4 Chopin ballades. So we have a perfect relationship. We're going out to Valentine's dinner later as friends. And so people compliment each other. And so she said, well, I think Steve plays those. So Charlene called me and said, I have a dancer coming from England, and she's a very interesting person, and she'd love to dance this piece. So what I'm going to show you is just part of the dance, because I want to get a little bit farther in our talk together. I would stay till 5:03 if you'd allow me. But anyway, because I love doing this, and once it's all prepared, you don't want to cut it too short. But you see in this music, what you need to know is now we're in the Romantic period. Now, Beethoven's sonata came approximately 80 years after Scarlatti's sonata. Let's just pretend that's the chronology. But Chopin's ballade came a mere 20 years, not even that. 16 years after Beethoven's sonata is written, Chopin is in Vienna writing this G minor ballade. And he's knowing, in the way that we know melancholy, which is imbued in his music, that he was never going to be able to go back to Poland. He'd left it once and went back home, but the second time he went to Vienna in 1829, I think, or maybe 1830, things changed, and the Russians said, no more student uprisings, you're now under Russian rule, and you're just going to behave. And he knew if he ever went back to Poland, they could yank his passport and his visas. And so his father was French, and his father was from the Alsace, and so he went to Paris, because he already spoke fluent French, and there was a big Polish exile or expatriates enclave in Paris, so he felt very at home there. He never felt at home in Vienna. I would guess it's because he didn't speak German, but there could be other reasons, and so he felt at home, and yes, you can feel. So he wrote this G minor ballade. His writing was already very deeply involved, let's say, with what we call melancholy. Not because that's a terrible thing, but because music, I have this memorized, so I don't need it, but I want to show you some things. So in the Romantic time, one of the ways they actually sought to express yearning. They loved being miserable. And so I don't know how much I love it, and I don't feel miserable at all, but they're just, they love that quality, maybe because in the music it takes you, you go to a place sometimes and you feel that sort of underlying, are they going to make it at the end, and you just are with them every inch of the way. Or maybe you saw Green Book, incredible film, anybody? Incredible, and you follow this guy, this black man, having his courage to go into the deep south and just make his statement by just being there. And that's a great movie if you get a chance. So one of the ways they expressed yearning in Romantic, even though it's yearning in Seufzer, which means sighing, and yearning would be another word. This piece is in G minor, but the first note of the piece is C. It has nothing to do with G minor in a way. We don't know where we're going. And the next note, whoa! And if you know the piece, you say, that has nothing to do with G minor, but it has everything to do with G minor because it's just delaying getting to G minor. So it's very nobly saying, I'm taking you to G minor, but I'm doing it in my way. What is that? I did it my way. Something. Or what's that? There must be a song, My Way or the Highway. But anyway, so here's this chord that in a few measures, can you point to that little arrow that takes you down to measure 8? The first note of the piece has a little line through that line dipping down and goes to there. And then the very next measure is when you finally get to G minor. And that beautiful chord progression, you can't know until you take music theory, and that's okay if you don't know, but this is more beautiful than the usual chords in the key of G minor would take you to have this. So when you get this, it's like French vanilla, or bourbon chocolate caramel, everything. It's so delicious. It's so heart-rending. Just that. It's called the Neapolitan Sixth. Guess what? Scarlatti was born in Naples, the Neapolitan place. And so it all comes back. But here's this opening. I'm speeding it up to get us to 4:45 or 4:58. And we still don't know where we are, which is the beauty of it. We still don't know. And now we really don't know. It's just like Valentine, that little arrow that they run through the heart. Well, this one goes right into it. And then finally, we get G minor. Does that make sense? You don't have to know music theory to feel it. And when you hear it, you feel it. So what I'm going to share with you is just a little bit of the video that Ron Scholl back here, MCAT, wonderful guy. He's quite a wonderful cat from MCAT, Missoula Community Access Television, and he's filming this, so this will actually be accessed, Schubert-Yad candles and all. And so that's what I wanted you to know. Can you help me find the dance? So I'm going to give you just the opening of this because it's 13 minutes long, and we won't have time for, you'll all starve. This is Valentine's dinner plans. So this is Sophie Rebecca, she isn't emerging, and Charlene choreographed this whole thing, and she had it worked out. I have to tell you this part because nobody else will tell you because I was the one that played it. But think of it, dancers, Olympic skaters, they always play to the same tape. So the same chord or the same moment happens exactly the same microsecond every time. So this was a big deal for these dancers, including 3 high school seniors and 1 high school freshman who are the choreographed group that supported Sophie Rebecca. And they loved it, playing with live music. They were thrilled, and I said I was thrilled, because I was playing this one place and I would have gone on to the next little part, but I thought it was just incredible repose, and I just let it be just a smidge longer. And they said, we felt that. And so and then one, I don't know, maybe you're here today, but one of the grandparents, one of the kids, the girls, said, I have never seen my granddaughter dance with so much emotion. And that doesn't mean they aren't when they're doing, but it all lines up and they're counting and they're lining everything up. And this is different, it's interactive. And it's like chamber music. So music is dance for the, which did I say, ears, and dance is music for the eyes. And so watch this opening and you'll get a feeling. So this was all planned. We rehearsed about 4 hours to get to this, just even how the entrance would happen in silence so I can talk to this part. How many of you, anybody was there? You, quite a few. I just love doing it because my whole life, I've done this a few times, so it's not the first, but it's different. So that was my job, just come out and sort of empowered them to show we're ready to go. together. I made a tape for them or a recording so they can practice. And they were doing they had an understudy. A girl from Brazil was the understudy in case Sophie was sick. You always have to have that. And they never missed a step, you see it. So I walked into the dance studio down here, and the tape was running. I just walked in. I wasn't supposed to be there at any given time. But I knew we were going to rehearse. I walked in, and the tape was going, and it was coming up for display. Tape run or the recording run and then I sat down at the piano and I just started playing along with the recording, and then they turned the recording on. And Sophie told me afterwards, she said it was just so magical. She said the real music just lifted me. So it's worth thinking about this because it's something, we're in an age of canned everything, right? Anyway, there were 2,000 balls on Fasching. Do you know what Fasching is? Fasching in Germany and Austria is the equivalent of Mardi Gras. It's the big celebration before everybody does their penance and their Lent kind of thing and gives up something. And so they had this big blow-off party. They had 2,000 balls in 1860, the year after Beethoven wrote the sonata, on the night before Lent. And in Vienna alone on the social registry, right? Guess what? They didn't have any TVs. Live musicians had jobs. Anyway, think of it. Anyway, so for what it's worth, we're up on time here. So maybe I want to play just one more piece for you because it's so beautiful and you won't. Maybe I'm playing it tomorrow, we don't know yet because William Marsalic has to make it fit into the performance today's schedule. So I'm going to play for you something that is very near and dear to me, and maybe if you were in the MOLLI course years ago, you heard this, but I'm just going to tell you a little bit of the background. So just imagine my hero, for example, but to get to know a person who I'm going to call her granddaughter tonight and tell her I'm playing on the radio tomorrow, I'm pretty sure, because the granddaughter of the daughter-in-law of, this name won't mean anything to you yet, maybe, of Alexander Zalotti, lives in Condon. Her name is Grace, and she owns Grace's greenhouse, and everybody loves Grace, and she's this great thing. But she is by blood the first cousin, 8 generations removed of Rachmaninoff, for example. And so Alexander Zalotti was the first cousin of Rachmaninoff. So here's the first cousin of Rachmaninoff who goes off to study piano with Franz Liszt in Germany, in Weimar, and becomes not only, I can maybe mention it to you guys, I don't know, but kind of a confidant of Franz Liszt. Because he was so talented and so wise and so smart, and he was very gifted, not at composing, but at, you might say, editing or revising or improving other people's work. He, Alexander, whose daughter-in-law lived on Eddy Street here in Missoula, I'd stop and visit her after work. And I said, Maria, how you doing? Oh, well, pretty good for my age, whatever she said. And I noticed her refrigerator seemingly was always empty, but there was this bottle of vodka, so I knew she was really married into the Russian thing. Whatever that may mean. Probably speaking out of ignorance, but she didn't eat a lot of food. But she was just full of great stories. And so she shared with me this manuscript, and I have the first page of it on my PowerPoint here, if I can just put it quickly. Here it should be. There it is. And sorry for all the little hiccup of microphone. No. Well, it's good up there. Sorry. It is good. Yeah. So that is the first page. This is a piece by a Russian composer in 1886. Zalotti was born in 1862, so he would have been a young man, and he would have known this composer. And the piece is a little prelude, and you see it written as Zalotti. And Grace told me when she saw the manuscript, yeah, that's Papa's handwriting. So he knew it was this manuscript that had a copy. And what the Heart of Baroque, they have to get my manuscript here, was different from what Zillogi just took out the notes and did me. So what they are sort of undulating intervals. And somehow along the way, I'm telling you that Alexander Zillogi concertized all over the place. I don't think he concertized in the U.S. per se, but he eventually taught at Juilliard, and that's where Maria fell in love with. She was studying with him at Juilliard and fell in love with his son, with Esco. And so he took this and he turned it into this. I want a little more light, because you don't need to see that. So if you can give me maybe even the stage light, something. Okay. So this is the end of our hour and 51 minutes together, and it's about 4 minutes left. It's so beautiful, and I'm sure, without knowing, seeing the programs, I'm sure Mr. Zillogi played it for encores, and that's what I plan to do, hopefully, if you rise for an encore. I'll probably play it. sort of that yearning thing to go busy, but in a most beautiful way. It's just so pretty. And I was playing for the recording of the Rock on a second cello for my mom. I was very close to my mom. She made it to 98 a couple of years ago. She was ready to let it go. But she was like, "Mom, this is so beautiful. Listen to this big 33 record, you know." And she's listening to it. She's like, "But it's so sad." And I said, "Yeah." And I knew we didn't understand each other in certain ways. And I said, "It is." And so maybe in another class I'll tell you about this great chord at the end of that piece that just tears your heart out in all the right way. But I'll tell you, Liz heard or saw what Delotti did with one of Liz's own pieces. He said, "Maestro, if not too much, I'd love to share with you some thoughts about this piece. I think it would sound even more beautiful if blah, blah, blah." And Liz said, "That's perfect." He said, "If I'd taken the time to revise and edit it, because I would have done exactly what you did." He said, "From now on, you can do anything to my music. I trust you totally. You can even sign my name, but you can't sign my check." That's a true story that's in Maria's papa, her father-in-law's book of My Memories of Franz Liszt, which is someplace in my own memory somewhere in a box. I love sharing this with you. Come Tuesday if you can. I'll play through all the pieces, and it will be a complete program. And tomorrow I'll play through the pieces with much less talking, more just listening. So listen to KUFM if you can. Be sure to support MOLLI if you can. And when you come here, be sure to help support the keyboard fund. I'm going to tell you a little final secret. We were just playing in Helena, and then one of the people from this area who's a representative heard us play for the fourth time. We've been invited back every 2 years now. And she loves the show, and she said, "We're going to have a big gathering of 14 states and Samoa and Guam and Mariana Islands of something called the Council of State Governments." So I'm speaking prematurely, but she said, "Would Pianissimo be willing to come down to Big Sky Resort and play this program for all these people here that are going to learn about how to do state governments better?" And so that's hopefully going to happen. But thank you so much, and come as you're able, and thank you for coming today. Thank you to Claire. Spontaneous decision that you needed to see that dance all the way through, rather than cut it off and just play another piece for you. It's more important to watch Sophie, the fact that she carved into territory. I'm proud. So, thanks.